Hey folks, welcome to this sponsored video for Marvel Snap, which just launched globally. If you don't know Marvel Snap, it's a new card game from the folks at Second Dinner, many of which helped create Hearthstone. You might know the name Ben Brode, for instance.
Hey, it's Ben Brode with Second Dinner.
Yes, that Ben Brode with all the flannel. And for me, I've been playing Marvel Snap pretty much every day since it hit early access. I think since May. So we're talking about 4 or 5 months of Marvel Snap for me now, and I've hit Infinite, which is the max rank in every season. So needless to say, I've been having some fun with Marvel Snap. And I know you worry sometimes people are only doing sponsored videos for the paycheck, but I've already made a bunch of videos on Marvel Snap for free because I like the game, and we're gonna make a bunch more. You can actually check those out down there in the description if you want to learn a little bit more about the gameplay of Marvel Snap, see some of the decks I've already covered. A lot of links down there, including a link, of course, for you to download Marvel Snap yourself. It's available on both mobile and on PC via Steam Early Access. So in this video, I wanted to cover a bunch of the different things you might want to know about Marvel Snap, how it works, what the different mechanics look like, how you progress and unlock cards. I've even got some beginner quality of life tips for you as well, and just a little bit of why I personally enjoy Marvel Snap and why I think you might like it as well. So that said, let's kick it off with how the gameplay in Marvel Snap works. So once you get into a game of Marvel Snap, your goal is going to be to win 2 out of the 3 locations on board. You do that by having a higher power total than your opponent, and of course cards that you put into your deck each have power levels or ways to sometimes manipulate power levels or have synergies with one another to increase their strength. You'll be building your deck full of famed Marvel characters like Spider-Man or Iron Man or Squirrel Girl. Now, I didn't know Squirrel Girl, but I'm actually falling in love with a lot of new Marvel characters I hadn't really encountered before. So sometimes you can just play for big stats, drop that Hulk for a monster stat line, or sometimes you can play for sneaky plays, surprising your opponent. Sometimes winning with a really small number is possible if you're very careful and calculated about it, but you can build a variety of different deck synergies to try to sneak or overpower your way into winning those 2 locations. And the cool thing about locations is that they all have their own effects that change every single game. So they have different ways to modify the board or game state or your characters, doing things like turning every character at that location into the Hulk. There's a lot of gamma radiation floating around, obviously. And what this means is that each game is going to play out really differently. Your deck will be the same. Your opponent's deck's gonna be random, who knows what they're playing, but you're each gonna have to navigate and adapt to those locations on board, and sometimes that can really change how you're gonna play out a game. Maybe you have to wait to play on this one until the final turn of the game and make a big burst play there, and that changes how your deck unfolds, focusing on other locations. Sometimes you might have to totally ignore a location because it's just completely anti-synergistic with your deck. But I like that it makes every game feel a lot different, and you have to really think on your feet to make sure you're playing to the game ahead of you and not just your deck. Marvel Snap also has a really important mechanic that won't be as familiar to most of you, which is called a snap. Whoa, who could have guessed Marvel Snap has a feature called the snap? And the way this works is basically it allows you to double your stakes in a given game. So you start out a game with 1 cube up for grabs, and that is essentially equivalent to ranking up. It's like gaining a star, perhaps, in other familiar games. And you can use the snap button to double those stakes, pushing it to 2, and your opponent can snap as well to 4. And what that means is, depending on whether you stick to the end or retreat in a given game, there's going to be a variable number of cubes or ranked points up for grabs. So if you're feeling really lucky or you hit a location that's super advantageous to your deck, you might be encouraged to hit that snap button and gain a bunch of extra ranks all at once from a single game. Alternatively, if things are looking really bad, or you just have a terrible hand, your cards are awful, or that location completely messes with your game plan, then you can retreat with only 1 cube up for grabs, and that means you're really not risking too much. You can really adjust to the game itself and mitigate some of the bad luck or bad RNG you might encounter. So this really allows you to climb quickly if you're smart with your snaps, and sometimes even if you bluff with your snaps. There's been many times I've had a totally dead hand, but my opponent thought I had some insane, amazing game-ending combo, so I would just snap and they'd be like, oh, okay, he's got it, I gotta head out, and you just bluff your way to higher ranks. So there's some really interesting mind games and calculations to be made in regards to the snap system, which good players can use to their advantage very, very often to great success. So I also wanted to cover a little bit of how progress works in Marvel Snap. In essence, how do you unlock new cards? Well, as you're playing the game, you'll earn a variety of different resources, boosters, and credits, and you'll use those in combination to upgrade your cards. Now, importantly, this is just a cosmetic upgrade. This is not like a lot of other mobile games where you actually make your cards stronger and you have like a level 7 Iron Man that's just distinctly more powerful than your opponent's level 5 Iron Man. Nothing of that sort. This is purely a cosmetic upgrade. As you upgrade your cards cosmetically, you'll progress on the track, and that will help you to unlock new cards. So you can spend money to do that faster, and you can also spend money on cosmetic variant cards, but you can't just spend money to make your cards stronger. So I also wanted to offer some beginner tips for all of you out there. These aren't going to be so much like gameplay or strategy tips. I think you'll need to be playing Marvel Snap before a lot of that really makes sense. There's quite a bit of depth in this game to break down, but I think there are a few quality of life things that will really help you early in Marvel Snap, just save you some headaches and make your life much easier and make the game more fun. So tip number 1 is the undo all actions button. If you hit the energy icon at the bottom of the screen in a game of Marvel Snap, you'll get this pop-up that says undo all actions, and that can be an absolute lifesaver, because sometimes if you're playing out like 4 or 5 cards in a given turn, it can be really difficult to unplay them and retrace your steps in order. Marvel Snap cares a lot about sequencing and positioning. It's very, very important for how things resolve, so the game makes you manually retrace your steps to make sure that the ordering and sequencing stays consistent. Sometimes it can be really hard to unwind all that and unravel your plays if you decide you want to change it up or do something different. So that undo all actions button can be a real lifesaver. Just clean the slate, start over from your turn from scratch. That will make your life much, much easier. So tip number 2 is how the reveal order works and how it is indicated. So in Marvel Snap, your opponent and you are both playing turns simultaneously, but there is still a reveal priority. One player's cards will reveal before the others, and that is based on who is currently winning the game, or if it's a tie at the moment, then it will be randomly determined. And if you're not sure who's revealing right now, you can actually look at the top of the screen at the name profile portraits there, and the person who's going to reveal first will have a glowing name. Their name will glow so that you can see that they're going to reveal their cards first, which can have really big strategic implications. If they're going to play something you want to destroy with one of your cards, for instance, if you're revealing first, it won't be there when your card reveals to destroy it, whereas alternatively, if they reveal first, it'll be there, and then your card can reveal second to destroy it. So you really have to pay attention to reveal order. Eventually, once you get really good at the game, you're going to be manipulating who's revealing first by holding resources back in some cases. But for now, it's just good to know who's revealing first and how to determine that. So tip number 3 is how ties resolve in the game. I see a lot of questions and a lot of misinformation about this one. So sometimes you can tie in Marvel Snap. Of course, if all 3 locations have the exact same power levels, that's going to be a tie. But sometimes you'll tie at only one location, and each of you will be winning one of the other locations. So you've each won a location and there's a tie in the middle, for instance. How do you determine who wins in those scenarios? Well, it is based on who has the largest power differential at their winning location. So if you're winning 10-5, you're winning by 5. If your opponent is winning 9-5, they're only winning by 4. So in that case, you would take the win there for a tie. So for my final topic, I thought I'd explain why I personally enjoy Marvel Snap. As I said, I've been playing this game pretty much daily for the last 4 or 5 months. I've put in an unreasonable amount of hours. I've gone to a crazy collection level already. I've been enjoying myself, and I thought if I explain why I like it, that might be helpful for you to decide whether or not you might like Marvel Snap. So for me, I guess reason number 1 is it has really fast games compared to a lot of other card games that might take 10, 15, even 20, 30 minutes sometimes for certain sorts of strategy games. Marvel Snap games are like maybe 3 to 5 minutes. You can get a game out really quickly, which is great if you just want to make a lot of progress. You just want to really grind through games. That pace, that rhythm can feel good, but also good to squeeze in when you just have a few minutes of downtime, waiting at the doctor's office, in the waiting room. Easy time for a game of Marvel Snap. Chilling in the bathroom, maybe squeeze in a couple games of Marvel Snap, you know, on a train ride, get a game of Marvel Snap in, no problem. No risk that you're going to run long, because games are always just 6 turns. Technically sometimes 7, but very limited cap on the number of turns in a given game. It just can't stretch any further than that. Games have that finite ending state. They go based on turns, not based on health or any other mechanic. I guess reason number 2 I like Marvel Snap a lot is that it actually has a lot of RNG, which some people will think is terrible, but in Marvel Snap, it's actually great, because the way the location system works, how it's changing every single game to be different locations, means that you're constantly having to think a lot about how to play out the game. In a lot of games, you can just kind of autopilot, play your deck, play the cards in order, play the biggest numbers, and that's more or less job done. With Marvel Snap, you have to pay a lot of attention to what the locations are and really adapt on the fly to how you're going to play out the game. So it's RNG, but it's RNG that encourages skill-based gameplay and reactivity and thoughtfulness. It's not just like crazy unlucky RNG all the time. Sometimes you really have to focus in and think, oh my god, this is going to really change my gameplay, and I have to adapt. I have to play my deck in a completely different way this game, and then the next game it's going to feel completely different again. And you're also, of course, balancing that against what your opponent is playing as well, and thinking about how they're going to utilize their cards and their likely deck build in the same scenario. So a lot more mental processing has to go into every single game. So it's RNG that encourages skill, which is pretty rare. On top of that, the snap system actually helps you mitigate a lot of your bad luck. If you do roll into some locations that just feel terrible, like unwinnably bad, which will happen sometimes, it'll be like, oh, I just can't win this game. There is no way I can overcome the unluckiness of this location. Well, it's easy to retreat and take your 1 cube loss, and you don't lose a lot of progress. And then when you do get lucky, you can try to use that to your advantage and gain 8 cubes in a given game. So your good luck moments can literally be 8 times as important as your bad luck moments if you're utilizing the snap system to help mitigate or advance your good/bad luck, which I think is really nice. On top of that, I guess the final thing I'll say is I really like the visuals and cosmetics in Marvel Snap. I'm not somebody who usually buys into cosmetics all that much. I don't really care all that much about different visual flares in card games. But with Marvel Snap, I'm like hooked on the variants. I've been buying with actual money a lot of the pixel variants, for instance. And I love upgrading my cards and just going through that process, making them shinier and fancier and 3D and animated. It's really fun. You actually get a real connection to your collection. It is representing that physical collection experience a lot better than any other card game I've played. I think it really feels like I have some sort of attachment to my cards as they're getting better, and I feel proud to show them off in games, which I can't really say I've ever felt before. So, and that goes true for the opponents too. Sometimes I'll see them have a really sick card and I'll just be like, oh my gosh, that thing looks awesome. I'm really jealous of your card. So rarely have I felt so hooked by a cosmetic system, which probably won't be a selling point to a lot of you, but I thought it'd be worth noting because that is something I've been pleasantly surprised by with this one. So that said, I think that's everything you need to know to get started in Marvel Snap. You've got a little bit of an overview of how the game works. You got some beginner tips. You got some reasons you might personally like the game. All you need now is the link in the description to go download the game. It is available on mobile platforms and also on Steam via early access. Currently, the Steam build is still using a vertical format to reflect what's on the mobile experience, but I'm told there will be a widescreen version coming in the future. So don't fret too much if you're wanting a full widescreen Marvel Snap experience. And stay tuned right here for more Marvel Snap content. Next up, I'm going to be playing a beginner deck that's going to have some of the beginner cards to make sure you're equipped with a deck that's going to help you out early on in your Marvel Snap experience. Then I'm going to be showcasing some cooler decks that you might be able to play along the way as you unlock more and more cards. So hopefully together we'll get better at Marvel Snap, learn how to play, and see some cool stuff along the way. That said, thanks much for watching, and until next time, game on.